In the second half of this series, I'd like to expand on the topic of sexuality and its use in the Monogatari series. In part 1, we talked about the concept of bad fan service, and covered one example in which fan service, or sexuality, plays an important role in the Monogatari narrative. But now I'd like to share another concept we can look at that is widely applicable to sexuality throughout the series. Sexuality defines character relationships and resolves uncertainty. More than being simply satire or a subversion of tropes, it is used by Nisio as a narrative tool. Monogatari is, therefore, inherently sexual, because the fan service is integrated into the narrative itself. Before we go into specific examples, it might help to also consider the following two attributes when looking at fan service-like scenes in the adaptation. Physical distance on a scale of close to far, and sexual intimacy on a scale of teasing to serious. This is useful because it helps put things into perspective. For example, we'd naturally expect to interact with a lover at a close distance with serious intimacy. With a good friend, the distance might still be close, while the intimacy would be more teasing. As a basic example, we could look at the relationship between Senjougahara and Araragi. There are no fan service heavy scenes between Araragi and Senjougahara following Bake Episode 2. This might seem odd at first, but keep in mind this idea that Nisio uses sexuality as a narrative tool to resolve uncertainty. There's no need to use it after Bake Episode 2 because this scene successfully resolves their uncertainty through the use of fan service, as I discussed in Part 1. And in fact, only a few episodes later, Araragi and Senjougahara have a clearly defined relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend. We could also look at Nadeko, who, by contrast to Senjougahara, is probably the least intimate with Araragi. Rather than see her interact with him directly in sexually suggestive ways, she is instead shown almost like a model posing for a photo shoot. This accurately portrays Nadeko's desire to be seen. Araragi expresses no interest in acknowledging her intimacy or closing the distance between them, and thus Nadeko's relationship with Araragi is defined, again, through sexuality. This is of course imperative to the narrative as well, since the distance between them is what helps shape Nadeko's subversion in Otorimonogatari.
見え見えなくらい好きなくせに付き合いたいわけじゃないとか、恋人になりたいわけでもないとか、それって何を言ってるのか全然わかんないじゃない。つまりお兄ちゃんってなでこちゃんにとってはブラウン管の中のアイドルとか漫画の中のヒーローとかと同じでただの憧れの存在に過ぎないってこと？
Well, those were some pretty basic examples, so now let's dig a bit deeper into this idea. Consider the two master-servant relationships that we see in the series, Araragi and Shinobu, and Senjougahara and Hanekawa. What sets these examples apart from the previous ones is that resolving the uncertainty in the relationship requires a degree of reconciliation. Both pairs had a close relationship before, but then had a falling out that resulted in tension and uncertainty between them. And there are some clear similarities in how each pair reconciles with each other as well. For example, in both cases, the character who had the most strength in the previous relationship, who we might call the master, allows themselves to become subservient to the other. The reconciliation scenes themselves are also uncannily similar, with Senjougahara and Shinobu both presenting themselves nude and bathing along with the character they are reconciling with. The nudity and the intimacy of these scenes thus becomes transformative. Even the simple act of revealing themselves serves to show trust and a desire to form a close bond. There's a higher level of intimacy between Senjougahara and Hanekawa, and in context, this makes sense. As women in love with the same person, both understand each other on an emotional and physical level. But Hanekawa has closed herself off, much like Senjougahara had before meeting Araragi. Senjougahara recognizes this, and in fact, she points out the fundamental issue just before they shower together.
でも、これでこっちの虎にはこっちで対応するしかなくなった感じね。虎？でも虎って、ひょっとしたら私はその虎が火事の原因なんじゃと思ったりしたんだけれど、 違うの？
These two characters have an emotional bond that runs very deep, and Senjougahara knows all too well that words are cheap in this situation. What Hanekawa needs is to be shown something she's never been given: honesty and intimacy. And this tactic proves to be quite effective, as we see when we take our focus off the girls for a few seconds to appreciate Hanekawa's confession in the dialogue.
彼女がこの数ヶ月で乗り越えてきたいろんなものの重さを思うと、同じようにいろんな経験をしながらも結局のところ何一つ乗り越えていない自分が情けなくもなってしまう。成長してない、変わっていない。だから戦場ヶ原さんがとても羨ましくて、そしてとても好きで嫌いになれないんだと思った。素直に思ったのだった。
Shinobu and Araragi, by contrast, are close physically but display no signs of serious intimacy. Despite their falling out in Kizumonogatari, they are linked on both a spiritual and physical level, in a way that runs deeper than a friendship or a romance. One might even say their bodies were a shared property between them, exemplified by Shinobu residing within Araragi's shadow and the fact that she shares his pain. This idea that their bond transcends friendship or sexuality is made clear in the Nisemonogatari bath scene, in a way that would not be apparent were the characters not shown in a highly intimate situation. Similarly to Hanekawa and Senjougahara, their nakedness serves to show a level of trust. Their thoughts and emotions are being laid out to each other, and nothing is being hidden. Unlike Hanekawa and Senjougahara, of course, this reconciliation is resolved with words rather than physical intimacy, which is appropriate considering Shinobu's silence throughout Bakemonogatari and the nature of her relationship with Araragi. So, the next topic I'd like to cover is Araragi's sisters, but first we need to have a word about Nisemonogatari in general. One of the fundamental themes of Nise is sexuality, and it would be correct to assume that a lot of uncertainty in relationships is resolved in this season. But it's also important to recognize why the fan service is so extreme, even compared to other seasons. Nisio has a habit of using a particular scene or season to blatantly explain a concept, and then letting viewers figure out the subtleties for themselves later on. For example, Bakemonogatari explicitly explains the nature of oddities through Oshino Meimei, who acts as a guide in each situation. In later seasons, Nisio then leaves it to the viewers to figure out the deeper meaning behind some of the more complicated oddity-related situations. Similarly, Nisemonogatari explicitly shows us how sexuality is used by Araragi to define his relationship with different characters and resolve uncertainty. In each situation, there is a distinct difference between Araragi's view of a character before and after the resolution. This is much more subtle in other seasons, such as the example we discussed in Neko White, or the relationship between Araragi and Hanekawa, which is being redefined continuously from Kizu all the way through Neko White. Keeping this idea in mind, we can go into more detail on Araragi's resolutions with his sisters. Let's talk first about the resolution for Karen Araragi. The fundamental uncertainty in Karen's relationship with her brother stems from the fact that Araragi claims not to agree with her sense of justice or the way she conducts herself. The hypocrisy here, as we will see Tsukihi imply in episode 10, is that their justice is actually more similar than Araragi is willing to admit. As a result, Araragi, as the older brother, feels no uncertainty towards his sister, convinced that she is weak and that her justice is misguided. Karen, on the other hand, harbors a lot of uncertainty towards her brother, because while she respects him, he's doing the same thing as her enemy, standing in the way of justice. Consequently, this conflict is initially resolved not by Araragi using sexuality, but by Karen using her preferred method, a fist fight, which we see in episode 7. This fight proves to be effective, allowing Karen to come to terms with her brother and to trust him in handling the situation with Kaiki. But here's the kicker, Araragi now faces the same issue. Now that Karen has redefined her relationship with him, his previous perceptions of Karen are no longer as useful, and thanks to Kaiki's dialogue, he's also beginning to recognize his own hypocrisy.
そもそもいけない。それは違う。あの娘のミスは一人で俺に会いに来たことだ。俺を吊るし上げたかったのなら、今お前たちがそうしているように複数名で来るべきだった。それ以外の点において、あの娘はおおむね正しい。 それともアララギ、お前はあの娘を愚かだと断定し、あの娘を愚かだと否定するのか。
正しいとは思うよ。だけど
強くはないと。確かに強くはない。だがあの娘の優しさは否定すべきではなかろう。
So now there is some uncertainty on Araragi's side over his relationship with Karen. We can see his confusion clearly at the beginning of episode 8. In fact, the entire first half of the episode is set up to show the disparity between Karen's character and Araragi's perceptions of her. She's dressed in a girly outfit, she talks about how she wants to be a helpful and dedicated little sister, she's more physically intimate, etc. The issue is further highlighted when Karen suggests that it's Araragi who instilled her with her sense of justice. This idea is so contrary to the narrative Araragi has been pushing that he begins making up excuses, refusing to believe that any of this is an honest change in his sister. He even contradicts himself by speaking in a way that he previously admonished Karen for.
安心しろカレンちゃん、僕が何とかしてやる。後のことは全てこの兄に任せておけ。差し当たってはお前をいじめたやつの住所と携帯番号、それからいじめを放任した担任教師の名前を教えろ。 So
in the end, Araragi can't seem to come to terms with his sister. He rejects the outfit, he rejects her physical affection, and ultimately he stands in the way of her justice by refusing to introduce her to Kanbaru.
お願いだからカンバル先生を紹介してくんないかな。
だが僕はカンバルに妹を紹介するつもりはないのだ。紹介できない理由がある。それはカンバルの一般的にはあまりに知られていない性癖を僕は立場上知ってしまっているがゆえの理由である。カレンちゃん。
なんだい兄ちゃん。
諦めろ。
So, as we've seen throughout the examples in this video, the relationship needs to be redefined. And how are we going to do that? Well, it turns out that at the halfway point in the episode, the characters themselves state what's happening in a way that's almost laughably blatant.
じゃあどうしろっつんだよ兄ちゃん。話し合い以外に私の念を通す方法があるってのか。
なら勝負しかねえか。
And thus, we come to one of the most creative examples of relationship development that I've seen in anime. The toothbrushing scene, which is the second half of the episode, essentially takes the uncertainties that Araragi expressed in the first half and gradually turns them into acceptance. Notice how, at first, Araragi retains the same attitude he had with Karen throughout the series. He acts like the strong older brother who's always right and in control, while Karen is just his misguided, foolish little sister. Karen, of course, is willing to submit to the toothbrushing because she already came to terms with her brother in her own way in episode 7. As she said herself, she's playing this game to get through to her brother and have him accept her. And before long, Araragi does indeed find that his attitude towards Karen is changing.
すげえ可愛い。うわうわうわ、マジでやばいって。カレンってこんな可愛かったっけ？あれひょっとしてだけど僕の妹って世界一可愛いんじゃね？今の今まで僕は理想の女子っていうのは羽川翼のことだと思っていたけど、それはひょっとして認識ミスだったのか？羽川以上ってことはないにしても、それでもこいつは羽川といい勝負ができるんじゃ。何を言ってるんだ。羽川と勝負できる人類なんかいるわけねえだろ。錯覚だ錯覚。この特殊なシチュエーションが僕を酔わせているだけ。
He now admits his sister is cute. He admits that he is being weakened, but allows himself to be carried along anyway. All the while, he's brushing his sister's teeth, a very indirect method of intimacy, but one that is appropriate for a sibling relationship. Of course, there's one final thing for Araragi to establish here.
なんで僕歯磨いたりしてあげながら実の妹を自愛顔でベッドに押し倒してるんだ。びっくりした。助かったぜ月ちゃん、ありがとう。温情判決が下されるのか、情状酌量の余地ありか、せめて執行猶予くらいはつくものかと僕とカレンはにわかに期待した。
二人ともちょっとそのままの姿勢で待っててくれるかな。すぐにコンビニ行って千枚同士を買ってくるから。
期待空振り、死刑判決だった。
As the fake sister, who perhaps we could say is more real than the real thing, decrees, serious intimacy between siblings is not appropriate. And so, thanks to a simultaneously bizarre, erotic, and enlightening game of human relations, the siblings' relationship has been redefined, and they now stand on equal footing. This is something we can see reflected in their interactions as the series goes on as well. I suppose the punchline for this section is, you can be close with your family, and the intimacy can certainly be serious, but there are probably some lines that just shouldn't be crossed.
そんなわけで今朝を境に僕とカレンは少しだけ仲良くなったのだった。
So this brings us to the all-important final relationship that is resolved in Nisemonogatari, Araragi and Tsukihi. The uncertainty begins in Nise episode 10, where Tsukihi is telling Araragi about how her sense of justice is different from his and Karen's. In fact, she specifically calls out that she differs from the two of them in this regard, and Araragi expresses some visible shock at the idea. It plants the seed for this idea that Tsukihi is different from Araragi and Karen, not only in her views on justice, but in that maybe she isn't even a proper sibling, as our good friend Ogi might say. This confusion over their relationship is further amplified when Araragi notices that a scar the doctors said would never heal is no longer on Tsukihi's body. It's at this point that Araragi subconsciously tests her. Is this really my sister? How exactly does Koyomi Araragi love Tsukihi Araragi? And it results in the following scene.
やっぱそうだ。
何が起こってるの？私、今なんでお兄ちゃんに脱がされて、拘束されて、挙句に押し倒されてるのかな？
いやさ、月日ちゃん、お前この辺に傷なかったっけ？あったはずの傷がなくなっている。医者から一生消えないと折り紙付きで太鼓判を押されたはずなのだけれど。
そりゃ傷くらい治るよ、人間なんだから。
ああ、そりゃそうか。
っていうかそろそろどいてよお兄ちゃん。傷のあるなしを確認したいだけだったら手首を縛るのと馬乗りになって押し倒すのは全く必要なかったでしょ。
そりゃそうだ。
なんで今解く前にわざわざ胸を触った？
いや、なんとなくなんか目についたとこにあったからどんなもんかなって思って。
そんな気安さで。
ほら、ぷよぷよぷよぷよ。
足で触るな。そんな楽しげな効果音など出ていない。もうお兄ちゃん、妹のおっぱい触りすぎ。
そこだけ切り取って聞くとなんだかものすごいキャラだな。
It's an utterly bizarre scene in the way it's portrayed. Araragi comes across as apathetic and confused by what he's doing. He justifies his actions with just because, and even the background piano music is tense, quite unlike the usual upbeat style we get in similar scenes. The entire setup of this scene points to Araragi's uncertainty towards Tsukihi's fundamental identity, something further reinforced by his oblivious statement afterwards about people potentially getting the wrong idea. And it's important to note that we don't see Araragi display this level of apathy in other similar situations, nor has he ever justified interactions with other characters by saying just because. This is because, with other characters, there may have been tensions to resolve, but their fundamental identities were never in question. With Tsukihi, there is a higher level of uncertainty, resulting in Araragi's test, his apathy, and his inability to justify his actions. The reason it's important that this is established in this scene is because at the end of the episode, Kagenui reveals that Tsukihi's identity is as a phoenix oddity. And it's only after this is revealed that Araragi is able to come to a conclusion about Tsukihi, as we see in episode 11.
不死身ね。ヴァンパイアじゃなくフェニックスか。えい。いやいや、お前とチューしても別に何にも感じねえと思ってさ。ドキドキもしねえし、嬉しくもねえ。お前やっぱり僕の妹だよ。
What Nisio has done with Tsukihi here and throughout Nisemonogatari is show what sexuality in this show is all about. It's not about the act of sex so much as it is the characters coming to an understanding about each other and establishing clearly defined relationships. And I think it's telling that in the final scene of this episode, we see this.
おはよう、おかえり。どこ行ってたの？
おう、実はお前のために 怪物みてえな人間と人間みてえな怪物と戦ってきたんだよ。
へえ、そりゃお疲れ様のありがとう。あんま無理しないでね。
無理させろよ。好きでやってんだから。
知ってる知ってる。お兄ちゃんは私たちが大好きなんだよね。
勝手に言い訳すんな。お前らなんか大嫌いだよ。夏休み明けにさ、僕の彼女を紹介してやるよ。
何それお兄ちゃん、彼女いたの？
うん、実は5月あたりから。
プラチナムカつく。
Here at the end of Nisemonogatari, Araragi has clearly defined the relationships in his life. The tension with Shinobu has been resolved, he's accepted his love for his sisters, and perhaps most importantly, he's revealed his relationship with Senjougahara to another person, distinguishing the love he has for other characters with the intimate love he has for his lover. And as those who have seen far enough into the series know, now the main story begins, where Araragi tries to resolve the deepest uncertainty of all, the uncertainty that exists within himself.